And good morning, and good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are on our little green marble, our little blue marble. Mm. So I'm waking up here, and had a very interesting dream. And what it was shown to me in my dream, and as I tell most people, when you have a dream and you remember it, and it's clear, you should first thing grab your little magic box here. Has a little record section. Hit that record and go, wow, I just had a dream. Blah, 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 blah. Right? And you got it in the magic box. You can play, play, and you can listen to it. You can stop it. You can pause it. You can go back. You can listen to it over and over again. And as you do, you write it down. Good morning, Miss Jane. Good to see you. And and you put it in there, and then you go back and you listen, you write it down, and when you write things down, we wrote things down in school not to remember but to understand. When you hear something and you write it down, you have this thing called a gestalt, German for lightning understanding. So I had a stream this morning. Um, Better say it before I forget about it. And it was I woke up to a bright light coming from the east, which is that way. And that way is west, right? That way is direct west, right? That way is like kind of south, and that way is directly north, and that way is directly east. So coming from the east, I was woken up by an extremely bright light, right? I mean, like, and it was kind of dark. I mean, here in this window, what happens? It's kind of dark at night. There are no lights around. It's dark, and around 5:30 ish, it starts to get. You can see out there. When it's dark, you can't see out there unless there's a big moon. Anyway, so I woke up, and it was one of those like wake up, and I woke up, and this is in the dream. I'm still asleep, but in the dream, I woke up, and it was dark, and then it was way brighter. I mean, it was daytime, and when it's not cloudy, what happens is all these trees, as the sun from the east rises up, these trees here get illuminated. They're all like beautiful. I mean, so that's what I wake up to. It's all orange and gold, and that's beautiful. Oh, it was white, and it was whiter than white, and got whiter and whiter, and it got so white I couldn't see. I mean, everything not only out there was it white, but it was, and the sun's was racing over there, but it was like the sun was like right outside my window, and it was shining in here, bright white. And the first thing I thought, someone's just, Third World War, nuclear weapons, and this is the Blue Ridge Mountains. There's so many things, Mount Weather's just over there. There's a zillion underground things along the Blue Ridge. And because it's close to D.C. and they've been putting them underground since World War One, so there's lots of stuff underground. And the NSA and CIA is just really just up the road, by about I don't know 100 miles. But when you're talking about hydrogen bomb, that's not much. So I'm like, is that? But pretty much, I wasn't scared, and I was going, well, I've seen one of these before, and I realized that it's instantaneous, meaning this light here, if it was an atomic bomb or hydrogen bomb, I'd be already atoms, right? But it's not. And then I kind of put my hand up and I look, and there is no shadow. I go, ooh, photonic light, that's interesting. And it's getting brighter and brighter, and then everything started to be strands of color. You know? um, and more color came into the scene, and everything got dark. But it didn't get dark like, oh, that bright light just kind of dimmed out. No, it went, super bright white light, no shadow. And then when I put my hand up, I saw colors streaming through my fingers. No shadows, but colors going between my fingers. And then I looked out, and there was, streams of colors all out there. And I'm going, And as the colors got deeper and deeper, it got darker and darker until it went to black. And then I heard I can't almost describe it, but it was more than music. It was more than a beautiful singing. Um, the only thing I can come close to is I've been in theater a long time, and musical theater, and I've heard really great choruses sing, right? And when I was in my scholarly scene, one of the places I used to like to hang out is I would go to the music department of that university and find where the choral room was, and look at the schedule and see when they were going to have a chorus practice, or where they were going to be playing music. It was like going to a free concert. And sometimes some of those choruses were amazingly beautiful. And it was like that to the millionth power. It was amazingly beautiful. And I started to have this taste of again, an amazing taste in my mouth, and an amazing smell. And kind of, everything kind of got, it went really dark, and in the beginning, all things were dark. It went really dark. And then I kind of sat up, and there's a mirror right there, right? And I sat up and I looked in the mirror, and I had a whole frigging different body, right? And it was like Doctor Who, right? It's like a different freak, not like me young again, but a different body. Still had the eyebrows, right? Still had a beard, um, and the beard was still white, but I was pretty young, and when I sat up, I realized I was a lot taller because instead of like here, I could just see the top of my head. Well, I could see myself right about there in the mirror, and I'm looking around and I'm going, and I kind of got up, and outside I could start seeing the outside. And I got up and I was looking at everything, and everything was vibrating. Everything, like all of this stuff down here, right, was kind of looked different. And I went out, and it looked different. Here, let's see. I'm gonna unplug, and I hope I don't. Am I still there, gang? I think so. I still here, there, Jane, and the other two. Anyway, so I got up, but I got up, and all of this stuff looked totally different, right? And I got up, I walked out. It was like everything was glowing. I walked out here, and it was like light wasn't coming from any. Everything was lit up. There were no shadows, no shadows. And I'm going, And I kind of walked outside, and I came out here, and I looked up at the sky, and everything was illuminated from the inside out. I looked up in the sky, and the sky was the deepest azure black, and all of the stars. And it was daylight, man. You could see, but all you could see all the stars. And I had this sense of total, like when I meditate, you know, when I meditate in the morning, and I kind of, I feel, the prana in every cell, and I feel pretty good, actually. No matter how much I heard, I still feel pretty good. And I realized that, whoops, there's my hand. Things had changed for the better. I didn't feel I don't feel any dread now. I don't worry about anything. I never have quite worried about anything. There can be things on my mind, but other than that, not really, because I know it's just going to be what it is, and I'll work it out. And from my experience, everything is as it should be. But everything is better. So, and then I just started not just having thoughts, but love's co-creation was like talking to me. It's like, that's like, okay. And, we are all part of a collective. And, unless you're an avatar, you're pretty much part of all our relations, We're not, this whole exceptionalism thing, well, I deserve $20 billion and everyone else has to starve. No. And I was going, And all of this information was just coming straight into my head, not like ideas or thoughts, but information like, hey, things have changed, things are better. Love's co-creation has come, and not come, but refocused better, because love's co-creation is always here. And I go on and on about how, when Lucifer broke heaven, he created this universe and it's Luciferian. And I say that the only way we can pop that bubble is with, this new aesthetic of love's co-creation is everything. And everything else that's not is an illusion. But that right there is a sense of separation, a duality. And that we can't, no, there is no duality. And these were the ideas coming into my head that, no, there is no duality, there is no separation. Luciferian, this world, yes, occurred that way. The Big Bang, the do, the linear time, all of that kind of stuff. Yes, that is what happened. But it's not because Lucifer was evil, And not to say that evil things are not occurring, because they are, but within the construct of dharma and karma, it's on this wheel. It just, you do that, this happens, you work it out, right? But, and I keep saying, hey, I've seen this opportunity of the open window, and that, we can go through that, and things can be different, But within the dream, what I was being told, the information, was that no, things are kind of what they are, and they're going through the change they need to go through, and your soul is in this sandbox to learn how to play nice with the kids, all our relations, and that you travel through, and many different cultures have been talking about, the different Vedas, the different ages, the different this, the different that. We're going from Pisces to Aquarius, 2012, blah, blah, blah. And when 2012 happened, I was out in the middle of a rainbow gathering, and that's kind of when I really, oh man, because my feet started to dissolve. I mean, literally freaking dissolve, because my chi was so frigging grounded at this gathering, and I was staying at what was known as the Goat Camp. And if you go to XRATTED and read cut one, that gives a really good example. But I was a lot sicker than I was in I could hardly walk. My legs were rigging, dissolving. I was really having a diabetic shock, but I was not saying, oh, I have diabetes, I got to go to the hospital. No. I spent 3 weeks there because I couldn't go anyplace. I set up my healing temple, and I spent 3 weeks there healing other people. People who were really had real issues, and most of the work I was doing was deep, psychic, loving, right? and that is healing the person from the inside out. And Jane, so say we all. We all are that special person. And that's what this dream was saying. Hey, buddy, everyone is part of this great link. And we're all in it. And the more we connect rather than separate, the more and quicker and easier and less stressful this change is going to occur. So it said, hey, this is going to happen soon, And I've been saying it, right? 40 days, 40 nights. The open window of the opportunity, all of these correlating biorhythm, trends. So, and that's why I'm going on about this alternative aesthetic. And we kind of really need to, start going into state, because I've been, every night doing a visualization. So it's having an effect on me too, And away, mute. And every day and every way, we take the piece of the earth and make it stronger. That's all we got to do, right? Every second, we got to choose between that angel on this shoulder and the devil on that one, and you constantly be the better self. And that. And if we all do this, man, and it's not like gonna pop the universe away. We're in this sandbox, and as long as we are in these avatars doing this until we, ascend, we are going to pop. We can be better, and the better we are, the better it gets, right? And so that was kind of what the dream was. That there's going to be an event, yes, right? And the powers that shouldn't be, and the hidden hand is doing everything they can to make it like end of the world catastrophe, aliens invading, blah blah. The worst, oh my God. Or we as individuals with free wills can choose. No, sorry, that's not going to happen. And we are going to step forward. And Whitley Strieber wrote a book called 2012. In 2012, everybody who was writing books wrote a book about it, right? And I liked his book really good because it was kind of, I think, affected by Fringe Science by J.J. Abrams. Because the book starts out and, it's like the TV show The Newsman's on. It's New Year's Day evening of 2011, 11:40, 58, and they're counting down to, it's got to be 2012. The Mayan calendar, everything ends. Anyway, it kind of, they count it down. It happens. Nothing changes, seemingly. Lights stay on. Everybody's still there, and it goes on. But in Whitley's book, that's what happens, and then he jumps 35 years into the future, and everything's falling apart. 2012 was kind of when it was like, right? And that's kind of what I saw in that rainbow gathering, because there was this thing called the Green Line. Everyone on the other side of the forest in the Green Line, all the bourgeois people were eating just amazing organic strawberries, and the people in the, goat camp were eating garbage, right? And I was there, and I set up my healing. My sisters helped me set up my healing temple, and I was like right in their healing temple, and I couldn't go anywhere. They had to run the gathering. They were the facilitators, and I couldn't do my normal thing. So I just sat there, and people came to me, and I worked on them, right, and energetically, and as a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist, I worked on them, and my legs were actually dissolving. I mean, really, it was amazing. And people would look at them and go, ah! you know, you know. And my healer friends came in and go, what the heck is happening to you, man? And I was, close to 480 pounds. So I was way bigger than my sweaty self of the 90s. And people were, what the heck? And, and so my real avatar friends showed up and helped me out, and also helped. We went to the top of this mountain because this was a rainforest and it hadn't rained in 2 months. There was no, the whole crowd of the Rainbow Gathering is going to show up, and this was about 2 days before it. There was no rain in sight. The whole weather pattern had moved north, and it wasn't raining. And so all the streams, all of the you know wells, and all of the springs had dried up. There was no water coming. Period. Sorry. And 20,000 people showed up, no water. Ooh, that's not going to be good. And the forest was just getting, all those people smoking cigarettes. You throw, all those leaves drier than kin. Ooh, it wasn't looking good. So I hobbled up on top of this sacred rock with about four shamanic sisters and brothers, and we did ceremony up there, and we could see this storm. From this top of this mountain, top of this rock, we could see this storm up there in West Virginia, and we were getting weather reports that, man, it was tornadoes and everything was up there, and raining like buckets, but nothing down here. So we visualized it to come down, and it did. Well, we couldn't control it, but it came down, and we had the biggest, storm like you couldn't believe. We kind of hobbled off that rock, and we told everyone we saw, you better, go into your camp, and everyone's running around and playing music and, you know, dusting themselves and dosing themselves, and that was the other thing. The whole spiritualness of the gathering kind of had, over the years, just gravitated in one big hedonist party. And anyway, so I went back to my little tent, and I had, my little healing circle was like down in a nice little knoll in a holler, and I was in a place where I knew that, it'd be safe. And I had a big tarp, and so I got in there, and I was in my nice little comfy bed, and the storm just hit like a buzzsaw. I mean, the lightning was like every 2 seconds, and it was like, right? And people came running, and their campsites, because and I had experienced this before. Their campsites were getting torn up, and they were, so everybody, not everybody, a lot of people came running over and got under my big tarp and said, "Can we stay here?" And a lot of people came into my tent and like huddled around me. "Oh, please save us!" And I said, "Don't worry about it. It'll be over soon." And it rained and rained and rained and rained and rained, and they, it had this straight line wind that was like a straight line tornado. I mean, it's unbelievable. And the lightning was, and trees were falling every which way. And I said, okay, the only thing we can do is pray. Come on, let's meditate. Let's visualize the rain staying here, but everything else going away, and that everyone's safe. And we did. And it did do that. And it kind of shot up the valley from Tennessee all the way up to Roanoke, and destroyed the northern part of Roanoke. I mean, just ate it alive. That wind just went whack and smacked into the mountains of the Appalachian in the West Virginia side, and just tore up the northern side, Botetourt and Bedford and places like that. And so, but we were 170 miles away. Anyway, it rained and rained and rained and rained, and then 6 in the morning, the sun came up. It was a beautiful day. And there was water everywhere. All the springs, all the streams, everything had water. And we had a pretty good gathering. No one died, no forest fires. People had plenty of water to drink. It was a messed up gathering, but it was way better than what it would have been. Anyway, And my body kind of got a little better. My legs, I mean, they were actually dissolving, and that's why I have no bones in my feet. And I felt pretty good. So I got up and walked around and became, when 4th of July, I came out and went up to the meadow and put my hammock up and saw people, and they came and visited me and brought me food and water and things and shared. And I, did my, psych, the thing I do. And so I stayed a couple more days, and I went with my friends back to their farm, and then I went back home. And I brought a few rainbow, what are known as drainbows, back to my school because they interested me. I wanted to. They really had certain issues about them, and I wanted to study them. I wanted to go and I was thinking about the alternative aesthetic. And I these people represented the best and the worst in human nature, and so I brought them up here, and they acted the best and the worst. They helped me clean up the place a bit, and then as an electrician for years, I would get bottles of really good whiskey and alcohol, and I don't drink that much, so I had boxes and cases, and these guys were serious alcoholics, and they found them cleaning up my house, and they couldn't control themselves. And one day I had to go someplace. I came back and they had drank. Each of them had drank 3 or 4 to 6 bottles of really good whiskey, not terrible stuff, but really good. And they were all suffering alcohol toxicity. And these guys are people who drink every day and get drunk every day. And these guys were, and basically they got to this point where they were like, and they said, okay, what are we going to do now? I said, fine. And clean up this place. You found up, I'm going to outfit every one of you because these guys are road dogs and they had no camping equipment. So I gave them really nice packs. I gave them tents, sleeping bags, and everything they needed to. And because the AT kind of goes right through Roanoke. And so I took them out to, about 30 miles away from here on the parkway, right where the AT cuts it. And I knew that from that point north, there was a good 100 miles of the most beautiful part of the AT. And that, they could go through it, and there'd be loads of people that they could talk to and be with and share. And that's what that part, it's like one big, conga line. So, and they could keep going up to Maine. I gave him a friend of mine who is a guy who's really an amazing guy who has a farm in Maine where people who are on drugs or dying of cancer or alcoholics or have any really serious problems go there and he heals them. You know, he's an old friend. We've done many things together, and so I said, "This is where he is. Get yourself up. Take the AT all the way to Maine, and find him, and he will take you on to the next step. I got you the universe, and I got you off of the little merry-go-round that you're on. You now have it all in your You got 200 miles to walk from here to his place, and it's up to you. But at least you got the monkey off your back. And if you don't get back on the merry-go-round of the monkey on this trip, and you'll have a way more gentler way to get from here to there, but there'll still be challenges and opportunities to get back on the monkey wagon. And that's where we are right now. We have great opportunity. Things are changing, and between now and that singularity, I hate using that word, but between now and then, all we have to do is breathe 20% in and breathe 30% out, and go into state and prepare. And that's why, as the cadre, I want us to work on And it's not going to happen. I have no idea when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen relatively soon. Like I said, pretty much between now and January of next year. Between so in January of next year is not too far away. It's like 10 months, give or take. So that's where that dream left me, and with a very positive sense that the more we can manifest a positive sense within our lives and our everyday and every way, the better things are just going to get better and better, really. Of course, there are going to be challenges. Well, Mutate, where are you? You in America? So if you're in America, and when the spring comes the next few weeks, and I head back to the deep green, you can come visit. All of you are invited. Just have to be your better self. You just have to. It's not a party. When you get there, you have to be willing and ready to work. To create, to co-create with love. If you're just there to be a drainbow, you're not welcome. I'm in the UK, but I love to come over. So, tell me about yourself, Mute. Where do you live in the UK? What are your friends? What are you doing? What's your job? Where do you live? What's your life like? And if you feel shy and want to talk about that here on the World Wide Web, you can always, talk to me at Creator in Life. Good. You can always get a hold of me at my Gmail, thedudeawake42 at Gmail. But keep going. Tell you so a creator in life. So what do you want to create? What floats your boat? What do you feel passionate about? Right. 35, with 2 children, a separated partner, living alone. Okay. Are the children with you? Do you see them often? What kind of, are you your partner? Are you, at least friendly enough to do the best for the kids? Yeah, every day and every way. I find, as I walk in the supermarket or in a restaurant or wherever I am, if I talk to people and bring out the better side of them, it works. See them every 2 weeks, right? That's good. That's better than most. And you have them for, a couple of days every 2 weeks. And so what do you do? Do you have a job? What do you do? What occupies a good deal of your time? Good. And more letters and less gifts. Less material. And phone calls are good too. Call them up every other day. I love you. I love you. They hear your voice. I love you. That's all you got to say. You don't have to go into any deep anything except I love you. And your partner, how do you get along with is this that's the mother of your children? Is who they stay with? Or are you the mom? You're the dad. You're the mom. Who's taking care of the kids most of the time? Nice, right? Doing mostly. Okay. So, do you write? Do you journal? Are you a reader? Do you read books? Because there's so many books, and reading is a great thing to open one's mind. Yeah, I know. That's that is one of the problems of that is the tool of a hidden hand. It traumatizes the population in every way it can. Chomsky's okay, but other folks like I'm more of the classic guy. I like you know Melville. Moby Dick, Charles Dickens, Tale of Two Cities, Christmas Carol. If you read the Christmas Carol once a week, it would change your energetics, right? Um, Chomsky, he's somewhere in between a scholastic and a scholar, and he's talking about deconstructing the materialistic, you know, political illusion. If you want to be part of the political gnomes, okay. Gnome Dickens, yep. Moby Dick is, a pretty big, thick book, but you have to realize what Moby Dick, what Melville was, he was a bard of metaphor. Everything he writes is a metaphor, you know? And there's a guy named Salinger, and he wrote a book called The Razor's Edge. Excellent book. There's a guy named Matt Ruff who wrote a book, Fool on the Hill, and he was at Cornell when I was at Cornell, and that book was exactly our life. Not so much me per se, but our life. There was a group of us, and he wrote that book, and it was like a unbelievable success. And then he tried to write other books. That was his one shot, and he wrote three or four more, and that weren't because he tried to do the same thing over again instead of trying to do something else. And then there's a guy. So that one book, you read that book, Fool on the Hill, not bad. And then there's a guy named Gord Vidal, who he's written hundreds of books, and they're all freaking different. Genius, right? And he's a historian. He grew up. His family were like old aristocracy, intellectual wealth, and power. And the men of his family either were senators in the Congress, or they were historians at Harvard. And he was, his grandfather was a senator, and he was a page in the Senate, so he saw the stuff going on. He was going to Harvard, and he journaled everything, and he wrote a book about his experience as a page and how corrupt and the senators in the courtroom screwing the pages, and it was like old Rome, and people taking money, and you think things are bad now. And he wrote this book in like 40 something, or 50, early 50s. And his roommate was Simon and Schuster, right? And so he said, "Oh, can I take this and read it and show it to my dad?" And his dad was, wow. So his dad put it into the publishing machine to be, without getting a contract or anything. And it just kind of got a life of its own. So it's about to be brought out, and this guy realizes, oh, I don't even have this guy's, John Hancock on a contract. I better talk to him before this thing goes out in the bookstores. So, they have a meeting. Yep, Gore Vidal. Yep. And so your friend loves Gore Vidal. Start borrowing Gore Vidal's books from him. And he's got a great series about the founding fathers. Burr and Franklin. He took all of their letters and wrote books, and he's like a fly on the wall. Anyway, so this first book, the guy comes and goes, "Listen, I'm about to release this book, and I need your, on a contract." And he goes, so Gord looks up the thing, and the guy's going to give him like 50 grand right there, and give him like 5 cents a book, and he sells a million books. That's quite a bit. So Gord realizes that he's got this guy by the short hairs. So he goes, "Okay, what I want is $1 million check, and I want 10% of the net." and I want another like 10 book contract, and I want to get $100,000 before I write the next book. Each book 100,000, and the same thing. And the guy goes, well, I said, hey, he goes, okay, so give me that 50 grand now. When the book goes out on the shelves, and if it's flying off the shelves, once you make your cut, then you give me another check for $990,000 and $50,000. Anyway, so he guy goes, okay, sounds like a deal. So they sign it, and that's exactly what happens. He gets that $50,000 check right there, and the book goes out, and he's still, he's about to graduate, and he was going to go on to grad school, and he was going to become, anyway. So he goes, and in this book, it's about everything about not only all the corruption of the Senate and our government and our country and everything you could imagine, but he kind of comes out, say, hey, I'm gay. And so it's a unbelievable success. They sell millions and millions of copies all around the world in different languages, and he becomes an overnight amazing guy. And but you know he's just burned every bridge he had. From his family disowns him. He's never going to be a senator. He's never going to be a scholar at Harvard. So he says, screw it, I'm going to have the life. He takes his free will, and from that point on, he has the life he wants. He is the person he is. So his novels are a great kind of momentum or salutation of life, and a kind of cheerleader to be who you are, right? Seize the day. And so I would suggest that you go to your friend and read his books and start journaling, writing down that's why I have these. I have hundreds of these. Whenever I see them on sale, I saw them on sale. I normally buy them at the Dollar Tree because they're $1, right? Most places they're $2 or $3, but Staples had a sale where they were selling them for 10 cents. So I bought I had no money, but I went up my car and I dug around. I had found $50. I bought $50 worth of those things. I still got a ton left, and that was a couple of years ago. So I write every day in that. And that orders my thoughts, that helps my meditation. Well, read that one. If your friend likes it a lot, read that one. But he's written in every single genre you could imagine. I mean, that's the beauty of Gore Vidal. He doesn't stick at doing the same old thing. Somerset Maugham. Yep. Thank you. Um, did he also write The Jungle? Or was that Sinclair Lewis who wrote The Jungle? But Somerset Maugham and Sinclair Lewis, read those guys because they're another touchstone of a time of between from 1890 to 1945. They really captured what was going on. Well, read them. If you have a collection, start reading those books you haven't read yet, Instead of watching TV or listening to the radio or doing anything that wastes your time. I used to live down the street when I was a little kid. My grandma's house was down the street from Malcolm X's temple, right? And I think he did call it a temple. He didn't call it a mosque. It was inside it. There was a mosque, but it was an old school, and you went in, and the lobby was beautiful and had plants and everything. And over here, if you were hungry, there was a place you go in and eat. Period. You don't have to join anything, sign anything, be anything. Hungry, go over there. Over here was a place you were sick. There was a medical center there, right? And right in the middle was a library. And those are three things, and you could just go in there 24/7. And then there was these big staircases. There was like, a front desk, and there were and you went up there, and that's where, you wanted to be a Muslim, you wanted to change your life, you wanted to uh, join the mosque, or be part of the temple. And the temple was more like a community, right? And it outreached into the community, meaning they helped everybody around. You didn't have to go in that building. You could, they had trucks, they would bring food out to people, meals out to people. They were the first people. This is like the 50s. They were doing, Meals on Wheels before Meals on Wheels. And he used to go down to the north part of Central Park, the very top. And there's a law that if you stand on a soapbox and have an American flag, you can talk your little hearts out anywhere pretty much you want. On the street corner, that's the free speech. I don't know if you can do that anymore, but he used to bring this 6-foot ladder, right? That had a little platform in the middle, and he would take the ladder, open it up, and he had this place where he could stick the American flag, so it kind of waved over his head. And he would go up there and talk and talk and talk and talk. And then he would come off the ladder, and all of the people from the temple would have set these tables up, and they had a kick-ass meal. And after the meal, they played music, and everyone danced. It was amazing. And all the old scholarly folk, there was like a corner for everybody to go and talk and just share. And he did that every Saturday or Sunday. I don't remember which day he did it, but sometime on the weekend. And my grandma and I used to go and listen to him talk. She really thought he was amazing. And he used to, I remember one time he was walking towards his ladder, and he put his hand on my head, and everybody's pretty much lots of different. There weren't that many white folk there. There were some, and and I'm wearing my Brooks Brothers suit, my camel's hair coat, and my little camel's hair cap that my father he would buy me two new suits and camel's hair coat if I was growing, but I never grew. I was a little peanut until I was about 14. So Malcolm X is, I don't know who's coming off his ladder, walking away from the ladder or walking towards the ladder, but he was walking and he put his hand on my head and patted me and goes, "Nice white boy, nice white boy." He went up there. And I remember him saying that you should always have a book in your hand and a notepad to write things down. Because if you think of something really amazing, you're not going to remember it. It's just going to go right in and right out. But if you write it down, you remember it, and then you can work on it and make it better. And he goes, if you're carrying a book to read, when you're on the bus, when you're on the subway, when you're at a place where you're just standing around, you can read the book, and that way you're not wasting your time. And it's true, and that's how I've read so many freaking books. Because whenever I had a free moment, when I was in this prep school, and Joe Kennedy, I went to this school called the Winchington School for Boys, and Joe was my roommate for a very short period of time because he wanted his own room because, I was annoying. As I read all the time. He goes, "Why are you reading all the time?" And I said, "Well, it kind of helps you, sharpen your pencil." "What do you mean by, the point on your head?" "What do you mean by," meaning, the more I read, the more I know. He said, "Well, I'm a Kennedy. I don't need to read. Things are done for me. I'm a Kennedy. I deserve," and pretty much there were a lot of guys that said, "I deserve this," because they were the richest folk in the world. I wasn't. My parents were, upper middle class, if that, So, well-to-do working class, however you want to put it. And that period between, 1890 and 1970 was the only period when the worker actually had anything. That's because we had 6 different political parties. not just the Democrats and Republicans. Well, we had the Labor Party, the unions, we had the socialists and the communists and the religious party. And the communists weren't from Russia. They couldn't stand Russia. The socialists weren't from, you know, the liberal Democrats of England and Italy and Germany. They hated those guys. No, they were, from that deeper sense of those philosophies. And the religious guys weren't just the rabid Jerry Falwells. No, they weren't the moral majority. They were every church there was: the Baptists, the Catholics, the Jews, you name it. And when when Martin Luther King went out, there were a ton of white guys, all in black with the little collar. That was the religious party. So when elections occurred, the legislators weren't all just, two wings of the same corporate bird. There's another book to read, Gary Allen's None Dare Call It Conspiracy. Very good book. Puts it out right, because he and I were both students of Dr. Quigley at Georgetown in D.C. And he was actually, going there, and I was just having a good time. I mean, it's great to be a scholar. You don't have to take a test. You don't have to write a paper unless you want to. And I kept writing tons of stuff and giving it to these professors. And they would go, another one of these things? Yeah. They didn't have to grade it. They just kind of had to read it and talk to me in their office. And they kind of liked that. And that's, my scholarly training came because I went to all these amazing people. I didn't have to get into Harvard. I didn't have to get into this place. I didn't have to pay money. I just showed up. Didn't make a fuss. Didn't make a noise. Found a nice place to hang out, either a fraternity or sorority. I was part of many sororities, and this was the 70s. So that was a great blessing. That was like old school education. I was like sitting at the feet of Socrates, and Alexander was sitting next to me. So, that's, when people go, well, did you matriculate? Did you spend money? What degrees? Well, I got degrees. Then when I started to be a consultant, and I'd be, part of a program, and I'd be producing product for these programs, and they were going to be published and, juried and, what do they call it when people look at the stuff and then say whether it's any good or not. Anyway, they didn't want the loose link being me. So I got a number of degrees because the guy ran the department, and he would open a drawer and say, well, you need this degree. And he would just sign it because now you got a, degree in this. And if anyone says anything, just show it to him. So that's how I got degrees. And I used to, when I, had a number of offices at this thing, and like when I work with people, and everyone had, their one little degree or two little degrees in a frame, I had like 12 of them, and they would come in and look at for all these different, pretty prestigious places, going, how'd you do that? You're only 32. How did you, and that's like, 90 years of, matriculating. And I said, wait, there it is, That's how important they are. Useless, just a piece of paper, right? If you're going to, like a few weeks ago, I lectured at this school, and basically it was a friend of mine who had got a group of students who were going to graduate in a few weeks, right? And he said, okay, if you want to pass my course, you got to come to this lecture and listen to this guy. And so they did. And basically, I lined them up and read all of their poems and gave them a cold reading, and they were like, and then I asked them, so what are you studying? What are you going to be? What did you blah, blah? And, every one of them just went to school, took the test, got an A, because that's what they were trained to do. None of them went off and got internships. None of them volunteered. None of them got in, meaning when I was going to school and all these things, I went off and worked in hospitals and volunteered because I wanted to see what this career was going to be like, whether it was worth my time to go through, jump through the hoops. And none of these kids did that. And so when they had started sending out resumes and no one got, so they're about to graduate with like 70 to $200,000 debt. They're gonna have to start paying that off with 12% interest. So all of them were signing up to go to grad school, you know, and do the whole, jack up their debt even more. And I just was telling them right on. What did you read this? Do you know this? I mean, all these people who were like in disciplines like brain science and social science and history. This one history person, I said, "So, do you know who Thucydides is?" And they said, "No, who's Thucydides?" Well, Thucydides is the Greek who is the granddaddy of written history, right? And his remark when someone said, "What's written history?" And he says, "Whatever the Romans paid me to write." And that's what written history is. It's like his story. Anyway, I told them that, and I said, you don't even know this. And then other people, this literature person, I said, "Did you ever hear a guy named Melville?" And who's that? I said, "You never." Melville wrote. A lot of people wrote the first modern novel. Mary Shelley, Frankenstein. That book still is valid today because the monster is our culture. Man, you should read it because the most human person in Frankenstein is the monster. And they don't call him the monster, they call him the creature. And he has some pretty eloquent things to say about the human race. And, Dr. Frankenstein is like the original deadbeat dad because he just makes this creature and then throws him out on the street. So, so I went through this whole crew, and did any of them think about or say thank you, Sensei Bob, for giving me something to think about? No, they went to my friend's boss. Not even that person's boss of the department that they were in, the chair. No, went to there's the president, and then there's the whatever that second person, and then there's this person who's like student dean or something, the person who kind of does the day-to-day interaction with the students. And a number of them went there and said, "How dare you bring this guy in and talk to us like this? He told us things that we didn't want to hear." And he said, "Well, were they true?" Because this guy, pretty much everybody at this place knows me. The president I met, first time I went to school, I went straight in the president's office. I kind of waited outside until everybody, his secretary and everybody was gone. He was just in there playing with the, paper clips. And I went in there, say, "Hey, how you doing?" And we started talking, and I said, "Oh, let me see your palm." I read his palm, and he was pretty amazed. And then we talked about this, that, and the other thing. I kind of did my homework on who he was and what, as he came up through academia, what his disciplines were and what he liked. And we talked about that. And I had a paper because I kind of done my homework. And I went through my 800 white pages and got one that I thought he would like. And I said, "Hey, I want you to read this." And then I said, "Listen, you read this, and your secretary is now out there, and I'll make an appointment for next week. And I will lay out a strategy to make this school better than Harvard. You will be remembered as the great, da 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 da." And because it was just a podunk little, you know, you know, what do they call it? Humanities college, liberal arts school. Uh, wouldn't. Yeah, But Jane, what did you get out of that experience? That's what you got to look at. I mean, going to, and I told all of these kids, I said, "Listen, so what can, when you, volunteer for something, when you get an intern, it's not just the experience of doing the job, it's the connections you make." That's how I got this gig being a scholar. Because I did all this volunteer, I, you know, did all these things and met all the, went straight to the really smart person, the head person, and that I made these connections, and that's how I became a scholar for 20 something years, and I went from one gravy train to the next. Hey there, research. How you doing, buddy? Can't stay long, but wanted to check in. Yep. Well, we're just talking about. I had a dream about all you had to do is every day in every way make it better, and in baby steps, if we all every day in every way make it better, it's going to be better. And collectively, as the cadre, as it grows, we already having effect on all our relations. We're already having effect on all of the above. You know. Well, mute. What you need to do. Um, so if you got the experience of doing that, start your own zine, your own magazine. Where do you think manga came from? Where do you think all these genres of literature came from? I have a friend named Lucy Lepar. She started a thing called Printed Matter, and she started in her kitchen. And we started doing zines and stuff, and then other people brought stuff to her, and she became a publisher. Now go look up Printed Matter. It is gigantic. She's dead, but she started this thing, right? And when we did the housing authority in New York City, we gave 500 families a legal place of their own that they owned, right? And we had gardens in all of them because these buildings were so far away from, these were neighborhoods that were redlined, and they just wanted it to go down to the earth so Donald Trump could buy it for nothing and build monstrosities, right? And the gardens that we started in the early 80s have now become the New York City Gardens, and there are so many. There are 900 of them throughout New York City, and a number of people who were the patron saints, these two women who were the patron saints, basically kept doing it, got the city, okay, whatever little crappy lot we have, you can turn into a garden. And they produce so much organic food that the New York City public school system feeds their kids on it. And one of those women became head of the New York City's, dietary duty. And she was a gardener, and then started having restaurants. We started doing the dumpster restaurants, and then she started having these amazing restaurants that the rich and powerful wanted to come to, and she made a lot of money. And so if you do something that you love, that you're confident in doing, you'll be successful. Get up every morning, and like all those years I was an electrician, I got up every morning. I go, oh, I gotta go to work. I loved doing my work. Well, mute. You've got to feel confident. You've got to love yourself and feel confident, because other than that, people are going to walk all over you. And look at that word, you menial. No, you're not menial. You know, and you're not a mute. You're not mutating either. What you are a chrysalis. You know, you are transforming into a butterfly. Visualize that one. Start reading books. Start writing stuff. Start creating. You carry a book and write stuff down, then go back to your computer and start kicking out zines, little magazines. You knock them off, you staple them together, you start selling them. Get a following. Get yourself a blog, get yourself a website. Get yourself a YouTube. You know, and what you need to do is go to my blog spot. Go to xratted.blogspot.com and read that three-quarters of one of my novels, right? And see what I did with that, right? Then go get yourself. If I can start a YouTube, and it took me, I went to my phone guy and said, hey, I want to do this YouTube thing. And, I started it. So what's your name? Okay. What's your phone number? Bingo, I had a YouTube, right? Took all of like 2 minutes, right? And that's where this thing started, right? And what I'd love it if you could do a YouTube where you take my videos, right? I got more than 400 of them now. Go on my channel and go download, go just throw a dart at them and start looking at them. And I'm sure out of that 400, there will be 5, 6, 10, 20, whatever, ones that you think, wow, this is really cool. So you take that and you play that on your laptop, or if you can plug it into your big screen, right? And you put it up there, and then you do it in a dark room, but you put a light coming from a lamp sideways so it doesn't shine on the screen. And if you've ever seen Science Fiction Theater 2000 or 3000 or whatever that is, where they play really terrible 1950s grade B horror films and sci-fi films, and they have these little puppets in front wisecracking, and all you see is the movie, and they chroma key their shadows like they were in a movie theater, like the wise guys in the movie theater always making cracks about the movie. And so and you don't have to do it that way. This one guy does it where he kind of does his own YouTube, but he has me in the background talking, and he's watched it a few times, so he knows what I'm going to say. So I'll be saying it, and then he says what he says, and it's like he and I are having a conversation. And there are a few people kind of doing that, and I love it. The more people who could do that, so that kind of pops up like mushrooms across the YouTube world, that would be great, and that would give you a platform to start. Don't feel like a mutant. You're a butterfly. You're just in your chrysalis state. You're transforming. Well, Jane, come on. You are a queen. you, you need to go in and take over that organization. You need to, you know, so the housing authority we started, right? We had no money. We had zero, zilch. And, we got everything. We took over abandoned buildings. Now, we understood, we had people, me as a strategist and the technical adjutant. And, and there were other people who had been doing this, like Adam Purple. He had been doing it since the Great Depression. And he was he was our Grandpa Smurf. And he had the garden, he had the space in Lower East Side that first he put up bed springs, right? And then he grew witch hazel and rose bushes through the bed springs, right? And he had a wall that was like 3 foot thick that a rigging bulldozer couldn't go through. It was like the Verdun, he had beams in there. And so, and when the police tried to like break into his he took over a whole friggin' block. And it's, oh, he's a drug dealer. No, had a garden in there. He was growing food for the people who couldn't afford food. He would bicycle it around. That was really Meals on Wheels. And so I mean, he was the guy who really taught us how to break into buildings and what to do and how to take them over and how to use the Homestead Act of 1876 to legally take the building. And because I was a master electrician, had a license, and I knew everyone in the city and in the utility, I got legal electricity in these buildings. And I got everyone who had an apartment an electric bill, because when the marshal shows up and they want to kick you out, if you have an electric bill, that's your legal right to stay there. It's like the platinum ticket to stay in your apartment. And so we were doing this, and the city was going nuts. They couldn't stop us because we went into these neighborhoods that were redlined, 60 blocks in any direction. And there was nobody. It was like Dresden, 1946. And so we had to build our own infrastructure. So one of these buildings we were demoing out, and we found coffee cans full of gold dollars, like from the 1840s. And did we spend them like drunken sailors? No, we used that. We started a what do they call that? A collective bank. There's a term for it, like the workers have their credit union. We started a credit union because we could legally do that. Six of us took our social security numbers, fill out the paperwork. We started a credit union, right? And we took that. We had about $70,000 in gold, and we took that and used that as our bank. That we then and we didn't join the FDI. The FDI said, "Oh, give us your gold, and you can join the." Said, "Sorry, buddy, we're not going to do that." So we did not join the FDIC, right? And so we got other businesses, to not give us cash, but give us stuff. And this was at a time when the savings loan 86 crash, and these businesses didn't, they were having a credit crunch. So we gave them gold for sheetrock and screws and things like that. And then we became a 501c3, and they could take whatever they gave us off their taxes. So they weren't paying any taxes, and they were getting gold that we were loaning them. They had to become part of the credit union and quit their bank. So instead of getting borrowing money over usury use, we gave them gold, and so we started this whole economy. And that's what bankrolled those 50 buildings, those 500 people's. That's what the universe gave us. We're tearing into a burned out building, and we found $70,000 worth of gold. Anyways, and we didn't spend it. We just used it, right? I mean, we said, okay, you're now part of the credit union, and you do all your banking through us, and we'll give you this much, not credit, but you do this much business, we'll give you that much money back. We just kept recycling the money that people would put in there. And it was like, Bailey Savings and Loan. Anyway, so I left New York City in 88 and did not go back until 2011, when I have 270 something godchildren, and one of them was going to get married, and she said, "You better be there. I'm going to come and get you." And she was really. She would have come and dragged me out of wherever I was to go to her wedding. So I went, right? And I decided, well, I'm just, going to stay with friends, and I haven't been to New York. So the Lower East Side had totally changed. It now was the hipster whoop-de-doo. It was like another Soho, blah, blah, blah. And as I was walking down Avenue A, I heard my, ow, ow! People were like popping their heads out. There he is, Al's back, right? And this, from 88 to 2011, then 88, 98, 2008, so that's like 20 something years that I was, or more. And I maybe 30 years. Anyway, so this woman comes running up to me, throws her arms and starts kissing me, and go, ow, ow, ow. And I don't really recognize her because 30 or something years have passed. And she turns, she goes, "Do you know what today is?" And I go, "Thursday?" She goes, "No. It's our 30th anniversary of the savings and loan." And I said, "Oh," and that's when Susie Q, it's you. And she's now the CEO. She was the most She was an accountant. We needed someone who could count those beans. So she's still running the frigging savings loan. And she goes, guess how much money we have in the bank? I go, I don't know. She goes, more than $1 billion. And they're not, you're not part of the FDIC. She goes, nope. And she goes, that's why this place looks this way. Every one of these, and that's why all these are small businesses. You don't see a single, you know, coffee guy. You don't see any of those. There are no big box stores. These are all small stores. All these people live here, and we kept taking over abandoned buildings, and we kept, everyone lives in one of the apartments that we started. And I hadn't been back for 30 years. And I was one of the 6 guys that started that, right? So Mute, you can do that. Jane, you can do that. Start an organization, Jane, that is going to take back your loan from those motherfuckers, Because these guys can't stand the light. You just get in their face. I mean, a small group of grandmas stopped the Shoreham nuclear power plant, right? They made, David and Nelson Rockefeller shiver in their boots, We're the only one who, stopped George Bush, Chase Manhattan Bank, Morgan, J.P. Morgan Bank, all those guys were owned Lilco, and they were just ripping the poor ratepayers. And we crushed the utility. We turned it back into a public utility. Oh, if it happens, it'll ruin the economy. But now Long Island's, is and their utility bill is one of the smallest in the nation because it's a public utility. Anyway, we've been talking now for an hour. Yeah. All you got to do, Mute, is and stop. Maybe your butterfly or your maybe put a newt. Might be a better logo because you're gonna have to start another Gmail account, and you need to change. You need to rebrand, right? So, and all so say we all. We are all the cadre. We are all rad. We just got to step up, and you don't have to jump across the Grand Canyon. Baby steps. Every day in every way. Just keep doing it. Just keep knocking at it. That's all you got to do. And in all of these things that I got involved in, I was a strategist, right? And I would, and I used the Iroquois great law of organizing. So everyone had responsibility. There wasn't one great leader. Now, there were spokespeople. We had our head lawyer, we had this, we had those people who look good on camera. Esther Pank and all the grandmas. Ooh, did they look good on? That's why when I went to Lilco before I sprung all of this, and at that time I had a video production company, and I had worked, in the nuclear industry out there in New Mexico. So I had the creds, I had a master electrician's license, and I was this videographer, and I was doing industrials mostly. So I was a corporate guy. So I went to Lilco and said, hey, listen, I want to make a video that, you're starting to get a lot of heat on this place. Now, I built reactors, here's my curriculum vitae. And they said, oh, yeah, you're one of us. And I said, yeah. So I want to make a video, to show it, and not like that you paid for it, but as an artist. And then I'm going to, release it and put it out there. And so this is like an honest, but I'm going to tell your story from your point of view. And it's not going to be my face. I'm going to have my sweet mother, who knows, who's like your basic ratepayer, right? That's the motif. of this. And you're the benevolent utility, and you're doing this for their good. And oh, that's a great idea. Oh, sure. So they gave me total access to their plant, and it's like Tweety Pie. They don't know me well, do they? So I went in there with my mom, and my mom is this tall, regal. Let's see, I think I got a picture of my mom. Unbelievable. She's always been the queen. She's a triple freaking Capricorn. She rules the freaking world, right? This is my magic photo book. You know, here's the picture of my mom. Let's see. French Broad. There's Richie. Now, this guy came from New York. He had been in advertising, and he retired, 48, 52, and his wife was a stewardess. So they combined probably made, they each made maybe 60 to 120 grand a year, and they saved it, invested it, all that kind of stuff in the 80s. And in 92, they took a trip, they retired, they went to Asheville because you could buy a beautiful house in Asheville for like 10 grand. And you could buy any building downtown for like, 10 grand. You could buy it because it was like stuck. And so there were no restaurants, no nothing in the square of Asheville. And this is called Bean Streets. And he grew up in the lower, in Greenwich Village. And he wanted to have a coffee shop like that was on McDougal. And he did. And it was, and, the day he was like, got the place and was tearing it down, I walked by and walked in, and all these crackers, oh, there, you'll fail. And I said, my God, this is great. And I helped him, clear out the place and fix things and do things. And so he was my buddy. And there's one of his employees. And this kid was one of my students at UNA, and he was studying to be an economist because his parents were economists and they were PhDs. And his grandparents were, went to Moorhead and were black intellectuals. But he was the most amazing musician. I mean, whatever he did, he was amazing at. And so these were kids from New York, the real deal punks. And this is the coffee shop, and it was, and so these guys, I found them in an abandoned building along the French Broad. It was the Pink House, and we had the Beer University. And I brought them up to Bloody Madison, and they were, bud trimmers, right? And these kids were lit majors. She was actually an anthropologist, and he was a lit, teacher, and she played a wicked piano. And here's the self-acclaimed, inner sanctum of the movement, right? And here's a long shot of Bean Streets. Here's what my friend playing the piano. And this woman, she was, your basic local. She had lived in Asheville, for 4 generations, and they bulldozed down her house, right? And there were 4 large paper mills that polluted, destroyed half of all of the pine trees within a 200-mile radius of these plants, and just poisoned the water table of Waynesville. This is the Canton paper mill, and they broke every law, and they didn't care. Because they owned the legislatures, the state, the county, the federal government. They owned. They were declared a one of those Superfund sites. They took $1 billion and gave it to the corporate chiefs, and then sold the business to the workers who wanted to keep their job. About a week before they were given 10 years to clean up, and they spent the money on themselves. About 2 weeks before they had to show what they had, they sold it to the workers, so the workers were stuck with what they did. And this was really, they buried 250,000 55-gallon drums with dioxin in it. I mean, it was like, these guys were sick. And this is a friend of mine. He won the Congressional Medal of Honor, and this is where he ended up on the side of the French border. It was really beautiful, but it was right where all the garbage kind of crashed into it. Right here is some sisters from my. They were part of my chorus. And this was so. I mean, he would pull this shit out of the French Broad, and he got arrested for cleaning up the French Broad because the. And here's your basic French guy being an artist in Asheville, and here's Kevin Hogan. He's like our token famous, or thinks he's famous, because you can tell people who think they're famous. So they always wear black and leather jackets. And I have a leather jacket that I wear when I think I'm famous. And here's my good buddy, Eric B. And when you read XRATTED, blogspot.com, he's the Eric B. And that trip really happened. We went to the most equitable truck stop in heaven. More members of the chorus at beer school with her dog, and that dog was Buttons. He was so cute. Very, very unbelievably obedient. Here's one of my paintings, just when I told, we started to call the Artist Trust, and what kind of, some moron said, what kind of artist are you? So I went and I painted this painting I'm an artist. So I went to his house, and he had shit for art, and I brought a few friends, who knew him, and and they knew me. Anyway, we went and visited him, and he goes, "You only throw parties. What kind of artist are you?" So I went into his studio, and I said, "Oh, there's a a 12. How much you pay for it?" It was one of those pre-stretched canvases that you buy at the Dollar Tree. I said, "How much you pay for this?" So I paid $15 for it. I said, "Here's 20." And I said, "I'm going to use some of your oils." Because he had all these great oils, and he was just fooling around with latex. He goes, "Well, I never use those." So he says, "You can use them." So I painted this painting in less, well, not all the way, but mostly 80% done in less than 3 hours, right? Brought a little bag of herb. He loved herb. And I said, "Okay, I'm going to paint a painting straight from my head, and for however long it takes for us to smoke all of this weed," right? And I did that. Now, yes, I took it back, and I took it with me and made it this painting, but I pretty much got it there 80%, and that's pretty good representation of my painting skills, right? And so this is like Trompe-l'oeil, right? I hung this up on the wall, and then I kind of painted this on the freaking wall, which was a representation of my little studio downtown, right? And I would do and here's Howard Hanger. He bought this house for nothing because half of it was burned down, but this is from the Gilded Age. This is what the Gilded Age looks like, the 1890s. And so they burnt out half into a dystopian, Playboy Club grotto. And we had some, and so Howard was, a Methodist minister, but he had the church of having a good time. There's my dad painting. I got him into painting, right? And here's my mom. So we've had a little tour. And so again, here's the art show that we're making fun of the rich. And most of this shit we got out of a dumpster, right? Just washed it up, and these girls are part of the chorus. They went to Warren Wilson, or they went to UNCA, and in those between 91 and 96. It was an amazing, because there was no one there, and the people were there of high quality. So there's my mom. And so I took my mom, and we went to the Lilco nuclear power plant being built, and they were about 80% done, right? So the place was a total mess. I mean, shit everywhere. Nothing was cleaned up, piles of crap and wires hanging down. And I didn't say a word. I just followed her, And so we went to the containment building, this big concrete thing that's to contain the reactor core. And when they pour the concrete, they had a gigantic void. It was like 30 feet round, and there was like 3 inches of concrete on one side of the void, and they were just going to fill it with joint compound. Like, yes, so that would protect you from, this 10-foot thick concrete thing was supposed to be completely containing the reactor. So if it had a problem, it would be contained, and it had this gigantic hole in it. And my mom said, "So what is this? And explain this, and what is it doing?" And she asked all the right questions. I took that, edited it down, and I sent a copy to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Now those guys view nuclear power like a religion, and they saw this plant, and that it wasn't being built by Babs and Wilcox or any of those companies that build the reactors. It was being built by you know, a New York City mafiosa construction company, that just kind of stole things out of construction sites, and they were like funneling billions of dollars into their pockets and building this joke of a reactor. And that video, caused the NRC to have license hearings because this was under Ronald Reagan and George Bush, who was President George Bush. And Ronald Reagan was just the comic relief. But they didn't realize what Ronald Reagan was. He was a lot better than what his corporate owners thought he was, and that's why they had to kill him, and replace him with a robot. Anyway, so all I kept doing was signing executive orders, turning over the rulings of the NRC. And my mom, the movie that I made of her going through the tour, changed everything, and started getting passed around and being played on public TV, and people were starting to go, "What the fuck?" And that's how, because Lilco bought off the county, bought off the state, bought off the congressmen and senators. They were owned by J.P. Morgan and Mr. Rothschild. Mr. Rothschild owns every utility, gas, electric, water. That's why the Price-Anderson Act, which guarantees the utility makes $16 on every dollar they put in, and they don't even have to use their own money. They take it from the ratepayer, and they can do it for infinitum. It's like a way to print money. They don't even have to open the plant, just work on it. And if it has an accident, they're not held liable. And now the utilities aren't held liable for Pacific Gas and Electric. A lot of those fires were started by their utility lines that they haven't been maintaining because they're more concerned about their stockholders' values and their boards getting their benefits. So there's my friend who, won the, he was a Marine captain and won the Congressional Medal of Honor and all these Silver Star. I mean, he won more medals, and he got arrested for trying to clean up Western North Carolina. Here's me, and I was, he had some real issues, a little bit of PTSD there. So I was his, minister, spiritual, fun guy. All he needed was a good time. He didn't need drugs. So we had another member of the chorus, and another fine, happy experiencer of beer school. And so here was this, Asheville. What made Asheville famous at the turn of the century? It was the center of patent medicines. And this is a river, a tributary, a tributary of the French Broad River. And along it grew all of these amazing healing herbs. And this guy turned Western North Carolina in the center of patent medicines, and Asheville as it. And UNCA was his, you know, alternative medicine school in the 1890s to 1930 something. And when he was dying, he gave all his properties. He had a lot of property in the city of Asheville and lots of houses that he let. And during the Depression, he just let people live in these things. He built them on his property so people could have a place to live. And then when people weren't living in, his students could live in them, and they could, harvest all of the herbs that are all around here. Anyway, he gave all this property to the city with the contract that they wouldn't change anything and they would take care of it and support it and keep his school, right? Well, none of that happened. All of that, they just kind of stopped it. When they went broke, they just let the city fall apart. And so people took care of this, right? Well, when Asheville was coming back after, 96, well, this little road that was beginning his driveway, they wanted to make a feeder from I-26, the new corridor, into downtown. So they took all of that, they owned it anyway, but they took it through eminent, because people were living on these properties. And a lot of these people owned these houses. There were 60 houses there. And they took all the property, they redlined it and took it eminent, urban renewal, And that lady, I showed you the picture of her saying she got her house bulldozed. Well, she owned that house for like 3 generations. And they stuck this bulldozer on her property where she used to park her car. So she had to park her car in the front, and they stuck a sign saying no parking, a section 4, no parking zone at any time, right? And she had to, if she legally wanted to park her car, she had to park it about 5 blocks away. And if she had groceries, or, if she just stand there and unload a car, they would give her a ticket. And so she got, and these tickets were like hundreds of dollars a piece, not like $5. And after she had, she got all these tickets, and they took her to court, and they took her house away and bulldozed it down. So she stayed in it. They took her license away because she didn't pay the parking tickets, so she couldn't drive to work. So she lost her job. And so, here's the picture of the bulldozer right where she parked her car. And when she had to go she got sick, she had to go to the doctors, the ambulance came, and this is what they did to that house within the hour of her getting in the ambulance and going. And they didn't take her stuff out. They bulldozed everything she had, all the pictures, all the photos, her ID, everything. And I had to put her up in the beer. And the only reason they didn't bulldoze the beer school is because, there was 20, 30 of those punks living in it, and there were, few, this is what the powers that shouldn't be do, right? And yet we, over. So here, this pink room on the ground floor, all of the walls were kind of rotting off. So the punk kids scraped it down to took off all the wallpapers and everything, and took it down to plaster. And then I showed them how to screen plaster walls, and so they put a whole new surface. And then I showed them how to do trompe-l'oeil. That is a painting. Meaning that isn't a window. That is like on the wall. That is what trompe-l'oeil is, And that's showing 3 dimension. That's my ability as a painter, right? Oh. Do, 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 do. So, guys, am I back on? Or did I? That was somebody who called me up who I care deeply about, so I took the call. Am I still on? We still there? Anyway, It's 1 hour, 42 minutes, and 55 seconds. And if I don't hear from anybody in the next couple minutes before, if it gets to 1 hour and 45 minutes and there's nobody on the chat, there's nobody there, I will say goodnight. Say have a good day, and I'm going to go off and do my errands. And you guys can, I'll see you tonight. Okay? And we talked for, yes, you are. Hey, Nitty Gritty. How you doing, buddy? So I started out with, I had a really interesting dream, and so I put it this morning when I woke up in meditation, and it was a very positive dream. So I suggest for all to kind of go back and relook at this one, because we talked about many things. And basically, this morning chat, this morning show, this morning's program brought to you by, hey, make your life better every day in every way. It's brought to you by going into state and looking at your Akashic record and getting the 411. Brought to you by your lovable Sensei Albob. And I know you're supposed to put the disclaimer at the beginning of the show, but I'm saying, don't believe a word I say. Just remember I am your Griot Sensei Albob, and I love you. So go back and watch everything. Nitty, are you good? You're fine? Go have a good day. What time is it where you are, kiddo? You're the only one left. Everybody left. You got anything else to say? Otherwise, when it hits 1:45 and 5, I'll be out of here. Unless you want to have a little more deeper conversation. And remember, Nitty, you can get a hold of me at the Dude Awake